WTF are the Democrats doing? The only time I recall Democrats being in more chaos and upheaval than now was in 1968. That, not incidentally, was when they held their last open convention. If Joe Biden were to drop out, should Dems have another open convention to sort everything out? At least Bill Maher thinks so. This, from his op-ed in yesterday's New York Times, Democrats could not buy. With all of George Soros's money, the enthusiasm, engagement and interest they would get from having an open convention, and in Chicago no less, famous for Democratic convention drama. Suddenly, instead of rehashing the debate from hell, worst episode of The Golden Bachelor ever, they would be hosting a competition, something Americans love. Who will get the rose this August in Chicago? Gavin or Gretchen? Suddenly, Stacey Abrams might say she's in. And so might Tim Ryan and Josh Shapiro. And Amy Klobuchar and Ruben Gallego. And Mayor Pete and Raphael Warnock. And Wes Moore and, who knows? Maybe Andrew Yang says he's a Democrat again. And that dude from Kentucky. I hear he's great. I'm hearing similar things from other Democrats. But before we join in the enthusiasm for an open convention, it's important to remember what occurred at the Democrats' 1968 convention. The leading competitors were Eugene McCarthy, viewed as the anti-Vietnam War candidate, Hubert Humphrey, seen as the candidate representing Lyndon Johnson's views, and George McGovern, the favorite of many who had supported Robert Kennedy before he was murdered. Alabama Governor George C. Wallace ran on a white supremacist platform, promising to undo the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. Meanwhile, the convention's host, Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley, refused permission for anti-patriotic groups to demonstrate at the convention. He made sure the International Amphitheater, where the convention was held, was ringed with barbed wire. As CBS anchor Walter Cronkite noted, the Democratic convention is about to begin in a police state. There just doesn't seem to be any other way to say it. Outside, in Grant Park and on the street in front of the convention headquarters hotel, it was mayhem. Over 11,000 Chicago police officers and 6,000 armed Illinois National Guard beat and clubbed thousands of young demonstrators. The scene inside the convention wasn't much more orderly. The competing factions were furious with each other. When Senator Abraham Ribicoff nominated McGovern, he pointed to Daley, saying, "With George McGovern, we wouldn't have Gestapo tactics on the streets of Chicago." In response, Daley yelled at Ribicoff, "Fuck you, you Jew son of bitch. You lousy motherfucker. Go home." 4 Daley loyalists then jumped on the stage to usher Ribicoff off. Ultimately, Humphrey was nominated, although he had not entered any of the 13 state primary elections. When his victory was announced, many delegates could be heard shouting no. No. Some 89 million Americans watched the nomination fight and the beating and clubbing of demonstrators outside the convention hall. Bill Maher has a point. Democrats couldn't have bought the degree of engagement and interest that the 1968 Democratic Convention generated. But did it help the Democrats? Richard Nixon handily defeated Humphrey the following November. So today's office hours question: if Biden were to drop out, would you favor an open Democratic convention? Now read Why I'm Sticking with Joe Biden. Robert Reich is a professor of public policy at Berkeley and former Secretary of Labor. His writings can be found at https://robertreich.substack.com/